Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation today. This is the third session of this Silvair training. As usual, this training is being recorded, so we will share with everybody. And the material will be sent by Nils, what he has done on the two previous occasions, and we will also share with everybody. So in lieu of time, please, Mieszko, go ahead and start.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Mieszko. I'm the head of support in Silvair. And today's training session, it's a third one, and it's mostly regarding tuning the projects, installations, and commissioning. So it's most useful for installers and future maintenance of the project. Today will be a lot of theory, not so much in terms of live presentation. So whenever you would feel like something is too difficult and you would need further explanation, please let me know. Ask any question during this session, because it's not so long session, but it contains a lot of knowledge that was not presented to you before. After completing this module, you should be comfortable using the commissioning platform. You will have a solid foundation of Bluetooth mesh network and be able to perform advanced troubleshooting techniques to diagnose problems encountered encountered during the commissioning process. And of course, you will need an open mind and a coffee. So this is the plan for today's presentation. First, we will review some elements of documentation. Then we will go through advanced troubleshooting tools, management of mesh projects, common problems and case studies, some tidbits, and best practices when contacting Silvair support. Our documentation, which is available on our customer portal for our registered partners. The structure of the core of the documentation is not changing, so you would be able to find everything well categorized. And of course, service desk credentials are required to access such documentation. This presentation will be also shared after, so you would be able to get back to it and maybe use it as a guide while exploring our documentation. Yes, the most important documentations are in section regarding application notes, as you would be able to see with which release of the application or firmware, what kind of functionalities are added or changed. So this is very important for everyone to get the latest application notes before going to installation, because this is changing with every release. Of course, our solutions are backward compatible, but if you would like to use the features that are released recently, you would need to read documentation regarding latest releases. Here are some documents also interesting to check out. Commissioning checklist, short guide on commissioning, very useful before going on installation, and actually have it printed with you. Silvair lighting control, details on different profile types, applications, and platform settings. This explores a lot of nuances and details, some use cases for using different profiles, applications, etc. Large installation recommendation, very important document, frequently updated regarding installations which are unusual, maybe very large installations, how to handle 2000 nodes and above, how to handle outdoor installations. And of course, Silvair Commissioning Quick Guide should be read by anyone who's preparing the project and going for commissioning. And now let's go to advanced troubleshooting. First thing to remember, our mobile application has the option to gather logs from actions taken during, for example, commissioning. Certain misbehavior can be firmware application or platform bug. And if you would like to report such, it's always good to first download the logs. Sending application logs will save the last 5 minutes of application data. So what I would recommend is whenever you experience a problem with application, restart the application and try again from scratch so that the logs would contain only the actions which result in such misbehavior. Such logs can be sent from different parts of the app, either from daylight harvesting screen for calibration when you see some errors, or maybe some errors with UI or testing screen. Every screen that you see, you can send logs from. This information in logs includes mesh packet info and application actions. So whatever was done during last 5 minutes will be recorded and sent to us as in form of logs. Not really human readable, but useful to support and engineers. And always start up from scratch, 2 steps to recreate the bag, and save logs. Okay, now let's touch upon errors in zones. This is very common issue. In this case study, we have 3 zones. 2 of the zones are sharing the same profile. I'm sorry. Installer changes settings on web app. All zones sharing that profile now require reconfiguration. So this is more like explaining the user error, because it might happen that you have a couple of installers working on site, commissioning devices, and maybe a project manager is sitting in front of the computer, checking something in our web application, and maybe even accidentally changes the profile, and this will immediately affect the whole project where such profile is used. And we've seen some examples that people are messing with profiles on the web app without notifying installers that something was changed and reconfiguration will be required. So always be careful editing profiles, multiple scenes or parameters in the web app. Saving a profile that is in use will require reconfiguration on site. Another very common issue is lost control over area. Zone with 10 devices, there is only one proxy available. Of course, devices contain firmware 2.17 or below, and no auto proxy is available in this project. Proxy device maybe was broken or stolen, and you don't have any control over mesh. You are on site with your tablet or phone, and you cannot connect to the area. The only solution, viable solution, is to add new device into such area, and this device will be automatically set as proxy, and this device will communicate to other devices. So it will restore your connectivity from the mobile phone to the mesh network. A reconfiguration of entire area is possible, so you don't need to go zone by zone. It is useful if many zones devices in an area require reconfiguration. This might be useful if something from the first example happens, that someone is changing profile and suddenly you need to reconfigure the whole area. This speeds up process of cleaning up installations, and reconfiguration can be done through the mesh. So you just need to be within range and connectivity with your mobile device, and you can reconfigure all zones in the area with one click. Of course, it takes time, so the bigger the installation, more time is required. Very useful tip, especially in installations where you go somewhere to fix issues rather than during the fine tuning of the installation. You can always use USB Silvair single and USB power bank or battery powered mesh device. This is useful for commissioning large installations or non-grid installations, because you can have a proxy all the time with you. So you don't, especially if you are working on installations with very old firmware or firmware that doesn't have automatic proxy, this might help to recover orphan nodes created while manually adjusting relay settings or proxy. Test tab in our mobile application can be used to test scenes, luminar light levels, etc. On the test tab, you can also check if your PIR sensors or ALS sensors are gathering any data or working with assigned profiles, ALS sensor will show you the actual lux level that such sensor can see. This can be used to verify mesh connectivity between nodes in zone. It's very simple, just stand outside of the range of one zone and connect with your mobile application through relay to such zone and use on-off commands to identify if this zone is actually, if it's possible to control the zone outside of being connected to the proxy from such zone. This is a mesh test example from the test tab. You can go outside of range of your target zone and any proxies inside of it. Ensure you have a connection to the mesh network through a different zone. So for example, maybe you want to check connectivity for future zone linking. So you can stand in one zone and try to control light level in the second zone. All devices in such target zone should respond appropriately. So even before before assigning zone control, it's very good to check if such connectivity will actively work. Regarding proxy connection, there's no way of identifying which proxy you are connected to. So even if you have, for example, 10 nodes, you on the large area, you can be connected to either of them. Closing and opening the application will resolicit a proxy connection to the nearest available proxy. This is mostly useful for static proxies. If you want to tune the project, it's very useful to, for example, have only one proxy per small zone to remove the network overload from such. Maybe the zone doesn't need to have so many connection points to the mobile device. So to be able to remove the other proxies, if you restart the application, you stand in the middle beneath the node with the proxy that you want to keep in this zone, and then you can switch off proxies on the other nodes. And of course, attempting to remove the particular proxy from the network that you are connected will notify you. So you will see that you are removing proxy that you are actually connected to. Okay, uncommissioned devices. Of course, if there are any questions, you can ask them now and I can stop the presentation to answer them. This is recap from last session regarding provisioned and unprovisioned devices. So you can check first status LED for unprovisioned devices, 3 blinks a second. Or you can check light output on unprovisioned devices. On power up, if you go through power cycle, the the light, the luminaire will blink as well. 50% to off, then 100% to off, then we'll stay on 100% lightness. The problem with unresponsive nodes is actually it's really hard to present this. I don't have live view presentation possibility today, but this exercise is very useful to do offline by yourself to see. You can even maybe break some device to see how unresponsive node reacts in the application, and the solution for such nodes is of course to physically restart the device. Usually this is the end of support for such node if the device is broken. So here we have a commissioning report. You can download the report from a web app, and this is something I can actually show you instead of just a presentation. Let me just open the appropriate profile. Now I will switch to our web application. Okay, now you should see the web platform. Here is our previous project for commissioning demo. If we go to the whole project, we can generate report here. Of course, there are different areas. One for troubleshooting, one for gateway that will be used on next session and our commissioning demo. So we can check report. And this is how it looks. We'll try to maybe increase the size. Okay, now it should be more visible. You have all the information regarding your project with links. This is very useful to check what was created, just as a summary. You can see the errors for devices. You can check how many ALS, how many proxies or N-Ocean adapters are connected to the zone. Such report, I would personally advise to download after full commissioning and to check with your commissioning checklist if all the zones are created as it was planned. here you can see even the plan for all areas. You can see the used profiles, zone names, commissioning dates. Here you can see even status as calibration required and configuration required. For profile occupancy sensing with daylight harvesting, so we can immediately see that this is light sensor here, which requires calibration. We scroll to our, oh yeah, this is the commissioning area. And here all the devices are working correctly. Here you can even see an Ocean Switch QR code. This is also important because, for example, if you would do reinstallation of some zones, and you might have an Ocean switches attached to the wall, so it won't be easy to remove them, to scan again and add again to the zone. So you can always check the QR code by downloading such report. Okay, now I will go back to the presentation. Here are some useful upcoming features that will be available in our mobile application. And actually, it's right now available. This Searchable Diagnostic Tab. Under every device, you can actually check with your mobile app, check the parameters of the device. You can also check elements by elements to see full firmware version, firmware information, even how many PIR actions are detected by the sensor. Automatic proxy is already available since 2.17 firmware. Right now we have 2.20 live and available. This allows you to, well, basically there is no need to be close to a proxy to access mesh network. So if you are within the range of the network, this automatic proxy will pop up to connect with your phone. And of course, you can either update the devices from the mobile app while contacting manufacturer. You can ask for over-the-air update availability for higher firmware to access certain new functionalities, but it will always require full reconfiguration of the zones where such devices are updated. And also, if you update devices, you would need to update a project as well. All the requirements are available straight from the mobile application. And just check recent application notes release information, and you will be able to tell if update is required for your installation to access certain new features. This is a recall from our last session. Identifying devices. When you add device, it will list all powered uncommissioned devices within range. You can move slider to the left to narrow the list and display only stronger signals. To identify a device, tap the icon and such device will blink 3 times. In high density multi-floor installations, power off uncommissioned nodes in additional areas during commissioning. This is very important to not commission nodes from the zones that are adjacent to the zone that you are working on. The best way for installations, it's not always applicable, but we always advise to power off the other zones, other rooms that are not currently commissioned to maximize efficiency for one installer and to avoid any mistakes. Further identifying devices, you can click on the icons in Test tab. You can try to verify if a device is responding by increasing the light level. And of course, if some nodes are unresponsive, you will be notified at the bottom of the screen. And of course, all devices in a zone can be identified at once just by using either scenes or on and off functionality. On the picture on the right, you can see a number of sensors, ALS and occupancy. And of course, also very useful tool. You can use mesh commands and ping. Identifying a node will return a device not found error if node is unresponsive or out of range. Currently, we don't have feedback in our system. And you should use always the latest version of our mobile app. And this will allow you to ping a node that is commissioned. Now we are going further into tuning. Subnets. Each area in the Silvair commissioning is treated as a separate subnet. The consequences of such are no traffic forwarding via relays between different areas, no logical control zone, zone linking, sensor linking between areas, and no reconfiguring through mesh between areas. So basically, you should treat area as a floor in the building. After successful finalized commissioning, you should check mesh quality. I always advise to do it in from different places on the floor. For example, when you have one area, you should run from mobile app, project view, select area, and then you can access mesh quality test from the three-dot menu. It's important to see which area will be tested. This checks quality of the mesh network by sending packets to 3 random devices in zones. It's important where you do the mesh quality test. This ensures relays are nearby. You should ensure relays are nearby. If testing mesh network for gateway placement, you should run the test from gateway location or future gateway location. And of course, the mesh network quality is indicated by circles. On the right side, you can see what is the meaning of different labels. So a proxy connection will be only with capital P. A mobile device with proxy and relay connection will have both indications. Only relay connection will have only R. And potential connection problem will result with red circle. In terms of gateways in projects, higher quality translates to more accurate energy readings. This is very important because in small project, in small areas, it's always good to have the highest possible network mesh quality. But in terms of gateway and scheduling or energy monitoring, such area controlled by gateway should be really close to 100% mesh quality. Let's talk about normal grid installations. When doing grid installations, little tuning is required. Automatic relay mechanism should work without major adjustments. Automatic proxy selection should work without major adjustments. And if project supports auto proxy, it's very easy to finalize such project. So when finalizing such grid installation, before you leave, ensure that there aren't too many proxies or relays set. Usually in grid installations, it's not a problem, but it's always good to deselect relays and proxies if there are too many. Ensure proxy, relay, and notion isn't enabled at the same time on any device. I'm sure I mentioned this before, but we advise to use such models on separated devices. So one device in the zone is a proxy, another one is a relay, and another one is used for an ocean. Of course, there are some situations where it's not possible. Maybe you can have, maybe you have only one node, one luminaire in some storage room, or only two devices. So it's always best practice to split such models, but if not possible, then definitely mesh network test should be run from such zone. And of course, use the test tab to ensure all lights are responding to commands. So usually, if you have a room with 10 luminaires, it's always good to try to control the lights from each corner if it's a huge room, to see if maybe some lamps are lagging behind with lightness operations. You will be able to spot the most problematic nodes even without mesh network test. Just visually, you can spot such unresponsive or slowly responsive nodes. I hope you can hear me now. Somehow my headphones are not responding.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Large installations. A large installation is not necessarily one that physically occupies a big space or has a large number of nodes. The size is determined in part by the number of nodes added to the network, the distance between the nodes and their spatial distribution. Sparse installation equals large installation. The performance of a mesh network depends on the complexity of lighting profiles used in the project. More advanced lighting profiles and a large number of nodes, over 200, may mean that the network will be prone to failures. Always remember that the maximum number of relay hops in a network is approximately 8. If you need more, consider splitting the installation into different areas. So just to repeat, the maximum number of relay hops in a network is 8. So for example, if you would like to control 8 zones in the area by one notion, let's say master switch, and you try to use zone linking, then you need to figure out how to split the zone, how to split the area so that you can control more zones. Maybe you can increase the size of one zone to cover area from two zones physically. So you can still use 8 relays for such control. This example is if you have 9 zones, and you want to control them with one switch, you would need to create one zone from 2 zones to reach this maximum 8 hops from relays, so that the zone can be easily controlled by one switch. Large installations will not work out of the box, especially if it's outdoor installation. Probably always it will require tuning of relays, proxies, not so much after automatic proxy solicitation. So the advice is to extensively use the mesh network test to try and maximize the health percentage of mesh network. Sometimes maybe you will need to add some additional device to better connect with some orphaned nodes far away from the closest relay. Always use the test tab and try to control zones via the mesh to ensure that the network is responding accordingly. So in large installations, to sum this up, I would say you do not always need 100% of mesh quality everywhere. If you have one floor with different control scenarios without gateway, where you don't use any scheduling on a massive scale on the whole floor, maybe it's not so bad if some zones cannot communicate with 100% mesh quality. The most important is for zones that are related, that are using the same profile, that should be maybe controlled with the same switches. These zones should have the maximum mesh network quality to avoid any future problems. Here are some project size limitations. This sometimes increases with updated firmware. So it's always good to seek our knowledge base and large installations recommendations document for the latest available size limitations. This is very detailed, so you should probably check this this presentation whenever you will build a project. Before, or maybe always, it's always the best to use our knowledge base for latest informations, most accurate informations. So we have almost 33,000 addresses per network, one address per element. Each device contains approximately 3 to 4 elements, which will result with 10,000 devices per project, approximately. Also, there is 16,000 group addresses. There can be only 8 groups per zone, which results with maximum 2,000 zones per project. So the rule of thumb, 200 nodes per area with gateway, and 250 elements on replay protection limit, updated in 2.18 firmware to 350. So currently maximum elements for replay protection limit is 350 with the newest firmware. This is for security reasons, and it limits on zone size and zone linking. I know it might be too complicated, but to understand it well and to know how to calculate it properly, you should reach our large installation recommendations document. 64 elements on subscription list or groups, which limits on zone linking up to 20 links per zone. Further on project size limitations, as mentioned before, 250 elements on a device replay protection limit. As of firmware 2.16 and below, 350 elements on device replay protection limit is still actual. This replay protection limit, all devices publishing sources to such device to understand better the elements. It's total sum of the replay protection limit. For example, for our recent firmware is 350 elements, and this is the sum of switches, zone and linked zones per switch, occupancy sensors, controllers for the zone, also daylight harvesting, light sensors, commissioning apps used in the project. So, for example, 2 zones linked with occupancy and daylight harvesting can have up to 80 devices in total for the maximum of RPL. Of course, the warning is shown in the app when you are close to it, and maybe to increase the reliability of the project, you can think of optimizing it maybe by reducing the number of different scenarios in area or even in the project, the number of active PIR sensors. This is all about messages that go through the mesh network. So maybe you don't need redundant functionalities in each zone. You can always check for how to optimize large installations. So this is recall for correct relay placement. So you always try to cover all the nodes with relays. Orphaned nodes which don't have relays, depending of course on the distance, but may not work properly while using a gateway, for example, for energy consumption metering. You might have inaccurate readings because such orphan device cannot publish the status as frequently as the nodes within the relay range. New firmware updates include stability fixes and new functionalities. Over-the-air update is always available. It depends on the manufacturer and how the manufacturer would like to approach such. So it's not Silvair's decision on availability of such updates. It's always the manufacturer right to decide whether the over-the-air update for such devices in one installation should be used. And of course, over-the-air update requires the device to be provisioned. So uncommissioned over-the-air update is slower and needs access to additional application. It's possible, especially when testing in manufacturing environment. You can always request access to Silvair DFU by creating a ticket or in our support system or sending an email to support@silvair.com. Project version update. Web app updates include performance improvements, fix bugs, and add new functionalities. Project version is not automatically updated by default and most likely requires someone to be on site to reconfigure the devices. So this is very important to not click too fast and actually deconfigure the installation because such update is available in the web app. Someone outside of reach for the installation can do that. I will present to you how such update looks like. Here we are on our test project. At the top right side of the project, you can read notifications regarding new releases. You can access Help Center. Also release notes, terms of use, and privacy policy. One thing to note, this might change depending on requirements for branded applications for our partners. And here, if we edit project, we can see that update is available for such project. And if I update it, the whole project will require a reconfiguration. You can see that this is very old version. Let me see if I have any devices. It's actually currently on testing. Yeah, let's update it. I will need to reconfigure the devices. So This is how it looks. You receive the information. When you update this project, you will get, for example, automatic proxy. This depends on the project version as well as the firmware above 2.17. Micro gateway configuration. Right now, just for testing purposes. And improved central control scenario configuration for tunable wide control. You can also read more details regarding such, and it will go to all the released versions. Very important, you don't need to access our knowledge base. You can read that directly from the application. Okay. Okay, let's update. Update may require reconfiguring some of the devices on site. In such old project, probably. You can see the process is very, very quick. Now, if we edit the project, we have the latest version. It's kind of instantly updated. So now if I go to this zone, you can see exclamation marks, and all the devices will require reconfiguration. So sometimes customers will let you know that we don't know what happened, but all the devices are not working as intended. We see a lot of exclamation marks. You can always check. And one of the first issues would be that someone updated the project to the latest version. Especially if the project is running for many months, and then suddenly something like that appears that each zone requires reconfiguration, you can assume that the project was updated. If you check the project version, you will see if it's the latest and the project is running for a couple of months, it was probably updated. So you don't need to always assume some errors. To be honest, errors affecting all the zones and all the areas in the project are very rare. I personally don't recall any errors like that. So most of the cases resulting with such requirement for reconfiguration of all the nodes probably should be related to project update. Okay, coming back to the presentation. New feature updates. Devices can have different firmware versions. So you can have a project with multiple different firmware versions, even in the same zones, areas, etc. Device capabilities are extended with each firmware version. Web app can push updates and new features. So yes, some feature updates may require recommissioning of nodes, removing and re-adding from project to enable new features. And this is important because it's not simple reconfiguration. Some very huge updates may even require recommissioning of the devices. So removing them from the zone and re-adding. It's always such information will be available in release notes. So before performing such update or change, always check what will be affected by. Okay, some tidbits regarding support. Always read the documentation. We put a huge effort on documentation, so it's not always the best way to go straight and contact support, because documentation is so detailed that you should be able to find solutions or information regarding most of the topics. And of course, please use support portal search function. It really works. If you would find any errors within documents, of course, please create a ticket for support and submit recommendations or requests. As we are close to the end of the session, I must mention that regarding troubleshooting, if you work on many installations, I would say the third installation any installer would commission will be the one for standard operation for such installer when you really understand everything. And it's really not difficult to understand the limitations and errors that may occur. Right now, we see that the most problematic installation types are outdoor installations, especially when the environment is changing during the winter season. For example, if you commission installation when there are no leaves on the trees around, the connectivity may be better than, for example, in summer when all the trees are covered with leaves. Things you can do to speed up issue resolution. This is very important because first level support is very limited and it is based on physical, more physical troubleshooting on site without any tools that are remote. We are still working on it, so in the future we will have functionalities or applications that will allow for external troubleshooting of installations without physical presence with your mobile device. The one very good advice is if you would have installation which is really broken and you really cannot fix it by yourself, the really good tool for us for support to be able to investigate issues on site is a gateway. So whenever a project has the gateway installed, it's very easy for us to connect to such gateway and see which nodes are problematic, what are the problems within the project. So when contacting support, it's very important to gather data beforehand. Tickets in the style like my project is not working, please support, will probably won't be efficient and will increase cost of installation support. So please always provide link to the project, which devices are affected. The best would be to have manufacturer and model numbers. Depending on the issue, you can gather application logs from mobile app, screenshots from the web app or from the mobile app. Also useful to provide some videos and pictures of behavior, installed devices, installers, even selfies, if you would like to present. Always give context of the setup and expected behavior. And we have customer support portal guide within our knowledge base. So before you submit the ticket, you can read some details on our process, how we approach the tickets, how we react to certain types of tickets. Queue of such tickets is watched by many agents and is higher priority than email support. So if you are a partner and you have access to customer support portal, please always use this form of contact instead of mailing support. And whenever you would like our support to investigate issue in the project, always add support@silvair.com as a collaborator to the project after submitting ticket, so that we can immediately start troubleshooting of such. The role for such collaborator, depending on your preference, even the simple user will be enough to check, to gather the report and see what's happening within the project. So this is a bit short presentation. If we would work together on some exercises, it would extend the duration of such presentation. Today we've covered a lot of technical details. So if you would like to get some answer to the questions you might have, please go ahead and ask the questions.
Any of the participants has any question, any doubts? If not, remember that we are going to send all this material to all of you after the event. So you can also read it, and you may write down any doubts or any questions, and you could bring them up on last session, which is going to be October 21st. And then we could bring all the doubts there to Mieszko, just in case. And maybe you'll have time to review session 1, session 2, and session 3. And if there's anything that we should ask him, we could do it on this last session.
Regarding the training sessions, the last unit that we will have next week will cover mostly connected services, so the gateway and usage and installation of gateway. After this fourth session, I would advise, strongly advise, to ask some questions, because maybe with your feedback, we might need some recall session one extra unit where I would answer the questions or present the functionalities that you might have questions regarding. So yeah, and also please provide any feedback regarding the training itself, so I could improve for further sessions.
Okay, Mieszko, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all participants. We appreciate your time, Mieszko, and this training sessions, and we remind everybody that our last and final session is going to be held October 21st. At the same time, we will resend the invite to make sure we will contact everybody by mail to remind you, and we'll send you the material as soon as Mieszko sent it to us. So thank you very much to everybody. Have a good day and do take care. Thank you, Mieszko. Bye-bye.
Thank you as well. Bye.